History was made this week as the country saw a wave of firsts for women, minorities, and the LGBTQ community. Democrat Wes Moore won Maryland's gubernatorial race by 25 points, making him the state's first black governor and just the third black governor to be elected in American history. Two women, Maura Healey and Tina Kotek, became the first two openly lesbian governors in the United States. Democrat Maura Healey was elected to the governor's mansion in Massachusetts. She also becomes the state's first female governor. Democrat Tina Kotek is projected to win Oregon governor's race. That makes her only the second woman to lead her state. Progressive Democrat Summer Lee won election to the House, making her the first black woman to represent the state of Pennsylvania in Congress. There, she'll meet up with fellow progressive and activist Maxwell Frost. He's heading to Capitol Hill not to protest gun laws like he has in the past, but to represent Florida's 10th district. Frost will become the first member of Gen Z in the House of Representatives. At 25 years old, he just barely meets the age requirement for being elected to Congress. There were also some firsts made this week with respect to religion. According to the Council on American Islamic Relations, at least 146 Muslim American candidates ran for local, state, and federal office this year. As of yesterday, at least 83 of them were victorious. That's a record. Among those is Nabila Syed, who has not only flipped an Illinois Republican district blue at the state level, but at only 23 years old, she will be the first Muslim, the first Indian American, and the youngest representative elected to the state's General Assembly. And Ruha Roman, who becomes the first Muslim woman elected to Georgia's State House of Representatives, as well as the first Palestinian elected to any public office in the state. Joining me now is that state representative-elect, Ruha Roman of Georgia. She represents the state's 97th district in Gwinnett County. Roman was born in Jordan and moved to the United States at the age of 7. Congratulations on your successful and historic campaign. How's it feel?
Thank you. It is surreal that this is happening. I still sometimes can't believe it. And when I went to the Gold Dome for new member orientation, it hit me like a wave, and I'm still processing it.
That's amazing. Well, look, there's a lot of parts of your story that my viewers will find interesting, but actually the standout isn't what you might think. You learned of the mechanics of running for office after attending a virtual seminar that was held by the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is a civil rights and advocacy group focused on increasing Muslim political representation. But you didn't intend to run for office when you attended that.
No, so I actually worked for CARE Georgia. It was the Georgia Muslim Voter Project and local organizations that did a training originally last fall in 2021. And there was a really great reporter there that wanted to cover the importance of minority women and particularly Muslim women running in office. And we had a phenomenal conversation. My intention for this year was to run a marathon and then help out with races in the fall of this year. Instead, when the article came out, the first sentence said Ruha Roman was contemplating a run for office. And the response was just so overwhelming that we launched my campaign 15 days later.
What happened to the marathon?
Did not happen. Obviously, I ran a very different kind of marathon.
It's a different marathon you're in right now. Let's talk about one of the things. You are there to be a representative of your district, which has a lot of breadth to it. You also, as always happens with first, you are going to be called upon to represent constituencies that you naturally represent: women, immigrant women, Palestinians, Muslims. How does that all fit into your larger agenda?
Yeah, first and foremost, it is a huge honor, but also a huge responsibility that I take very, very seriously when it comes to representing my district and those who see me as someone representing their voice. I grew up as a minority. I grew up as part of a historically marginalized community. And to me, that's really taught me how to pay attention to those that have long been overlooked. And so part of my agenda is actually the agenda that impacts all of us. There are universal challenges that impact us as people. Some of us more than others. You know, there are more layers added to those challenges, but they are still very similar. Whether that's access to healthcare. We all need healthcare to be able to survive and thrive. Access to high quality, diverse, affordable public education. Access to the ballot box is incredibly important. And so at the end of the day, these are all universal issues that impact us. Similarly, we've seen before, even in places like the Georgia State Legislature, where the General Assembly has chosen to pursue more divisive laws that might impact specific minority groups, whether that's Muslims, Palestinians, you name it.
Ruwa Roman, as a private citizen, was Ruwa Roman as a private citizen. Now you, as an elected representative, are going to be the target of a lot of organized groups. A lot of the Islamophobia and thinly veiled racism in this country targeted against Muslims is organized. It's not good faith people who don't understand things. Mm-hmm. It's groups. Have you felt that yet, and do you know what to do about it?
Yeah, so I actually helped establish the Georgia chapter of CARE during the, unfortunately, Trump candidacy administration. So we dealt head on with some of the worst of that. And what we found, and what I quickly learned, is that these are organizations that are funded to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And over time, I was able to develop a process of responding and dealing with and processing that hate and attacks. We actually saw it during my own race this year, where, my opponent tried to say I have ties to terrorism. He worked with a think tank to say that I was a terrorist plant, which obviously is not true. So what we did is we ignored them. We starved them of the oxygen they were looking for until they started to spend more and more money. And then we only responded the equivalent of how much they were reaching. So if it was a local podcast, we went on that local podcast. If it was a mailer, we sent out a mailer. We chose not to escalate anything because we also did not want to amplify their hateful message. And so over time, I've learned that sometimes the best thing is to ignore it. Other times, the best thing is to make fun of it, which is what we also did. And then other times, it's to respond to it depending on the situation.
What you can't ignore is the very organized and well-funded anti-Palestinian lobby in America. What do you do about that?
I have told people that know me and people around me that it is just as important for us to be as organized, as committed, and as consistent as those lobbies. And we have seen that those lobbies are not always successful, like with candidates like Summer Lee. What it takes is all of us as a community sifting through that noise, ignoring that noise, coming together in the real world where we all exist and face real consequences from these policies and say, look, we are actively rejecting hate. We are actively supporting people's human rights. And we actively recognize that these people are people that deserve, freedoms and the ability to represent. And in my case, I am a Palestinian. I also have policy issues that matter to me. And so we already know that people are going to come to me at me for my identity. But at the same time, I also have an entire community backing me that cares for me. I would not be here without that infrastructure.
Congratulations on your victory. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Ruwa Roman now becomes the first Muslim woman elected to Georgia State House of Representatives, as well as the first Palestinian elected to any public office in the state of Georgia.